All right, we have about 14 people, and we'll wait for another minute or 2 minutes before we get started. Hi, Sanjeev. Hi, Nilesh, Rubo, Kapil, Hema. Some familiar faces, some new faces. Guys, Emma has asked, and I'll ask as well, if possible, turn on your videos, cameras. Most of us do not look as good as you, but if you trust my statement, I'm sure you'll not feel shy to get on camera.
Thank you.
I should say that about myself, not about you, Emma. You,
No.
Mashni, are uh, always, show up really well. So,
Yeah, thank you. If you can put your camera on, it's always so nice to see faces instead of black screens. So if you can and if you're willing, feel free to show yourself. And yeah, it's great to meet all of you. Welcome to the webinar.
all right, it's 6:02. We'll get started. Welcome to everybody on the call. First request from all of us, especially for this session, is if you could turn on your videos, it would be great so that we're not looking at just styles. We're looking at real people because the people who are presenting are amazing. Today, we're going to be continuing our discovery series. This is hosted by our company called 25 Years More. We are a young startup, just about a year old. And we are in the business of, establishing Life 2.0. And among the many things that we do, we run a webinar series. We ran one last year. And this year, we are calling it the Discovery Series. The Discovery Series is, designed around a few themes, which I'll talk about. But about the company itself, we are creating a global community of what we call smart agers. Um, this could be people from the age of around 45 or anything beyond. We started with different age groups, but then we realized the number did not matter. But anybody who's looking to understand what their next phase of life looks like, we're here to provide, coaching. We are here to provide guidance. We provide it in a framework called Learn, Earn, Give, and Grow, which essentially breaks down activities into 3 or 4 different idea areas. One way to disseminate the information is through webinars. And last year's webinar series, I think we ran about 8 of them. This year, we're running 9 or 10 of them. And in a poll, we asked for people to vote on topics of interest. Adventure, wellness, finance, and a few others bubbled up to the top of the list. So the first session that we had in February was about adventure, and this session is about wellness. And in this year's webinars, different from last year, what we're trying to do is finish the webinar, we have a bunch of partners. We have around 20 or 25 partners. And we usually introduce the partners and their activities, and really try to follow up with some actions which say, okay, do you want to sign up for a trek? Do you want to sign up for a wellness event, et cetera, et cetera? Our growth has been very good. So far, we have about 400 members in the Smart Ager community. We have a fairly large following on LinkedIn as well. And we are looking to create maximum impact. And we would love for you to give us feedback on what we're doing, join our community, and join us. And there are different ways to join us. Visit our website at 25yearsmore.com. You'll see what we are intending to do. We have a assessment, Life 2.0 assessment. That's the link is out there. More than 200 people have taken that link, and that gives you a real-time, a radial graph assessment of whether you're ready for Life 2.0. And if you want to reach us, there's the link to reach us, and we'll send you the slide deck as well. Okay. With that, I would like to start moving the conversation to the two people who will be sharing the limelight today. We are really excited to have Karin Reiter. I always might get the pronunciation wrong. I think it's Karin Reiter, and she will introduce herself. amazing person. She's been all over the world, and her life story, when I heard it, it was really, really impressive how she's worked through some challenges, particularly on the health front, and found ways to resolve it herself. And now she is a serious practitioner of functional medicine. Okay. Emma, on the other hand, she's a friend and a coach in 25 years more. She's just moved to an amazingly new house in Singapore. We went out there. It's a dream place. And I will hand over the mic to Emma. She will introduce herself and then pass over to Karin. So Emma, over to you.
Thank you, Naveen, and very pleased to be with all of you today. Thank you for having me. So I put under my name and my video tile podcast hosts, because today Karin and I are going to be presenting. Karin will present a presentation, a few slides about the 5 mistakes that most of us do as we age. And after that, I'm going to ask questions. So hence, a bit of a Q&A podcast style. A little bit about myself, very briefly. So my name is Emma Noguchi. I'm actually half French, half Japanese, and I've lived actually half of my life in France, a little bit in India, and now in Singapore. I was also in Japan for a few years prior to Singapore. I'm an executive coach. I have my own business for the last 10, 15 years now. I also work with 25 years more, and Naveen and Moshmi, and I typically partner with successful individuals who actually have mastered the external world or the external game, so to speak, and are ready to conquer more of the inner game. What do I mean by that? Well, they typically no longer need to prove themselves and work really hard. But actually, what I help them with is something that I think money can't buy, a transition from success to more significance, ensuring the second half of their life is more about legacy and purpose. But today I'm not a coach, I'm more of a host, and I'm super excited to have one of my dear friend and favorite nutritionist to come and share her top tips about nutrition, happiness, and wellness. I've known Karin for more than 10 years, I think, or maybe even more. And she's looking after my well-being, my nutrition, and I can't recommend her enough. She's a wonderful person and have a really holistic approach to health and wellness, which is what I really appreciate. And last but not least, thank all of you for your questions. We've compiled them, and I will do my very best to bring them live so that they get to be asked to Karin, and hopefully you get all the answers from her. And without further ado, Karin, over to you.
Thank you, Emma, and thank you, Navneen, and thank you, Moshmi, and thank you, everyone that joined today. This is awesome. I am going to share my presentation. Here we go. Okay, so thank you guys for having me today. I know we have a punctual hour, so I'm going to get straight into it. And today I'm going to share with you some of these health mistakes that people or that accelerate weight gain or metabolic inefficiency as we age, both for men and for women. So for those that don't know me, my name is Karin Reiter. You said it right, Navneet. Karin Reiter. I'm a functional medicine culinary nutritionist. That means that I am trained both in the biological side and the chemistry side, and also the holistic side of medicine. And I practice in the world of nutrition. I am very, very passionate about food and making it taste delicious and living life to its fullest. And I'm a huge hiking fan, and I think that's why Moshmi and I connected together. And I'm based in Israel, but I lived in Singapore for a long time, and Hong Kong and in Australia. And I do really love to travel the world for work and for fun. This is what I mean when I speak about functional medicine. Functional medicine is what's called root cause medicine. It's when we look at someone holistically. It doesn't matter what disease they might have. It might be something serious like cancer or autoimmunity, or it might be something less serious like eczema in the skin or asthma, for example. And all of the diseases have root causes. And these root causes could be mental, like stress, for example. and they could be emotional, like negative emotions, like anger, for example. And they could also be physical root causes like inflammation, infections, poor diet, poor sleep, poor digestion, poor detoxification, and so forth and so on. And in order to be healthy, you really need to look at your health as like a pillars that we have to conquer. And some of the pillars are things like sleep and your nutrition and your movement and your detoxification. But you should never ever forget that the pillars also include your mental, emotional state as well. So I always like to start off with this. As we age, our body changes. I know that weight loss is a huge, it's a very big buzzword, and it just doesn't get off with, it's always popular. But our bodies change, and this is normal. And I think what we're seeing on social media is not normal, and very often it's fake. And so we need to put that in mind all the time, and we need to question all the time, who are we following on social media? Is what they're sharing with us true or fake? And that's a big task these days. And I always say that, you can spend your life striving for unreasonable perfection, or you can spend your life and your resources building your relationships, including that one with yourself, traveling, doing meaningful work, growing, learning, and working on your health span. And that's why I really like this connection with 25 years, because I really feel that this is where we can grow together. I know we're here to speak about weight, and I will start off with saying that you should never ever measure your health with the scales. The scales tell a very simple story of what is your body mass. And your body mass speaks of how much liquid do you have in your body, liquid meaning fluids and blood, okay? How much is your bone density, which that tends to go down with age? How much is your muscle mass? Also something that tends to go down with age. And last but not least, how much is your fat mass? And fat actually weighs the least out of all of it. So when someone steps on the scales and says, "Oh, I've gained 2 kilos," or "I've lost 2 kilos," it doesn't really say much about your health. Where we need to understand the difference, and I like the slide, and sorry to all the men that there's just a picture of a woman here, but you could just as well put a picture of a woman here. There is a very big difference between fat loss and weight loss. So when we're speaking about health, longevity, metabolic health, preventing diabetes and preventing Alzheimer's and preventing heart disease, we're speaking about fat loss, okay? Because we want metabolic health, and we're going to go into that in a minute. But when you eat less, for example, you I don't know, you go down for 3 meals a day to 1 meal a day, you're probably going to lose weight because you're not getting the calories that your body might need. Weight loss does not exactly attribute to fat loss, and this is a big difference. When you just lose weight, for example, if you cut your caloric intake, for example, if you're taking one of these IGF-1s like Ozempic, for example, okay, when you stop eating and you lose weight, you might go down in size, but most often you lose your muscle mass, you lose your tissue mass, and you might be dehydrated and be losing your water content. Okay. And this is not the healthy way to lose weight, because this actually doesn't help you with longevity, and it doesn't help you with your metabolic health. On the other hand, when someone loses fat, this is done with proper nutrition, so your body is nourished, you're leaner, you're toned, you're increasing in strength and endurance, and you don't lose your muscle mass. And this is where the magic happens. This is where you reduce your risk for disease. So when we're looking to improve our longevity, to improve our health, to improve our health span, and to lose weight, we're looking to lose the actual fat. And this needs to be done with precision. I always say that you should measure your health with the following factors. One, your brain. How do you feel in your brain? If you wake up, if you function throughout the day and you feel sharp, concentrated, focused, driven, motivated, if your memory is working well, that means your cognitive function is working well. And this is a huge sign that you're on the right path to health. If your energy is good and it's stable throughout the day, that's a great sign. If your skin is good, that's a great sign. If your digestion is working well, and this is a huge sign for health. a lot of people overlook digestion. But if you're digesting your food well and you're having a bowel motion and you don't feel bloated or gassy or have reflux, that's a great sign. If you don't have any extreme hunger or cravings, that's a great sign. If you're sleeping well, if you can control your mood, this is a good sign. And if you're fit and lean, that's amazing. And last but not least, and you can always check this, you have to look into your blood work. And if your blood work is optimal, then you're doing well. So I'm diving straight into the 5 mistakes that people do when they're looking for weight loss and how to overcome it. So the first one is usually what I suggest to is under eating protein, especially for breakfast. So those who know me, and there's quite a few people here that I see and I notice the names, you know that I'm a huge advocate of protein. And if you're following anyone in the health and wellness space at the moment, you will know that protein is really a superfood at the moment. And why is this? Because protein is actually broken down into something called amino acids. And these amino acids are the base of every single thing in your body, your muscles, your neurotransmitters, your cells. All these are built from the amino acids that you eat. And essentially, protein is the superfood that every single one of us needs to eat, especially in the first part of the day. When you undereat protein, for example, if you start your day off with oats and fruit, or a bowl of fruit, or pancakes, or bread, or a croissant, for example, or you skip breakfast entirely and you don't eat at all till lunch, and then you have a sandwich, for example, for lunch. When you're under eating protein, especially at the beginning part of your day, you are going to lose muscle. Because what happens is your body's going to need to break down your own muscle mass to give your body the amino acids that it needs to function throughout the day. Okay. Your blood sugar might not be stable, and that might cause cravings towards the second half of the day. This might increase your need for snacking, and it's probably what's causing you to have unstable blood sugar levels, which could potentially lead to high blood sugar, insulin resistance, and diabetes. So, the first and most important thing that everybody should be doing is that they should be noticing that there should be protein in every single meal that you eat. This could be protein from animal sources and it could be protein from vegetarian sources, but essentially, we should focus our meals around protein and especially protein in the morning. So, orange juice and a croissant, or orange juice and oats or fruits, they're great, but not for breakfast, okay? The second mistake that most people do is overeating healthy carbs. And I guess this is it goes on all in every place that I go in the world, this is the case, right? So we base our meals on rice or bread or pasta, and that's the main part of the meal. And then the side part of the meal might be the vegetables and the protein. And so what happens is even healthy carbs, like this type of wholemeal bread, for example, or lentils, which have a bit of protein, but essentially they have a lot of carbs, or fruits, for example, which are considered healthy carbs. Even these types of carbs break down into sugar, into glucose in our bloodstream. And this spikes our blood sugar, which in turn spikes our insulin. And when we have these spikes of sugar and insulin, that increases the fat storage. So even if you think you're doing something healthy, like you're saying, I had a client yesterday and I asked her, what do you eat for breakfast? And she was like, oh, I eat 3 fruits. I cut them up and I eat them for breakfast. And I was like, well, that may seem like a healthy choice for breakfast, but that's not a great choice for breakfast because what's happening is you're spiking your blood sugar and that is increasing your fat storage. That spike signals to your brain to increase fat storage. And that also creates cravings and blood sugar imbalances, and also can contribute to like feelings of fatigue, for example. So what do you need to take from this is that you should never eat your carbs alone. So having a whole bowl of fruits or even one fruit by itself is not the best choice. You should always combine your carbohydrates with proteins, fats, and vegetables. This will create a much more stable blood sugar balance. The third mistake is what I call chronic snacking. And this is something that I see across the board. People are constantly snacking. They're sipping on coffees all day long. They've got little nibbles and cookies and fruits and nuts, and they're continuously snacking because they're bored and they're tired and their blood sugar is dropping and they need something to pick them up throughout the day and they need sugar and something to energy to get them going. This chronic snacking completely shuts off fat burning. If you want your body to be a fat burning machine, you need to create pockets of fasting. That doesn't mean you need to fast the whole day. That means that you need to eat three or two, however many meals your body needs, 3 meals a day. And between these meals, you should not be fasting. You should brush your teeth after your meal. You're allowed to drink water. You're allowed to drink herbal tea, but you should not be snacking. Okay? When you consistently snack, you teach your body to be dependent on sugar for energy. Our body can use both sugar and fat for energy. I'm sure you've heard of the ketogenic diet. This is when the body uses ketones, fat, for fuel. So when you're in a fasting mode, your body actually usually taps into the fat storage. So this is why it's very, very important to initiate an overnight fast. And we speak about this a lot in longevity. Some of you might have heard about, intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is literally overnight fasting. You're fasting for 12 to 16 to 18 hours. I tell people always start with 12 hours. That's a great place to start. And you should be fasting between your meals. This encourages your body to go to your fat stores for fuel. This is good not only for weight loss, but for longevity, for health, and for energy, and especially for cognitive function and for brain function. When your body's burning ketones, you actually feel a lot more sharp and focused than when your body's burning glucose for fuel. The fourth mistake is what I call chronic cardio or focusing only on cardio. Cardiovascular activity is great for your heart, it's great for your blood pressure, it's great for your body. The thing is that just like nutrition, where you've got proteins, fats, carbs, and vegetables, and you have to have a blend of these foods in order to get what your body needs nutritionally, so is the case with exercise. You can't just do one type of exercise. And majority of us are usually focused only on cardiovascular, like walking or running or swimming or Zumba, for example. Those are all cardiovascular exercises. When someone is only doing cardiovascular exercises, especially things like running, for example, it creates high stress levels in the body. We've got high levels of cortisol. Okay. And these high levels of cortisol create muscle breakdown. Okay. When you have high levels of cortisol, you've got muscle breakdown increasing. You've got higher insulin levels and higher glucose levels, which will increase your hunger levels as well, which will then lead to fat storage specifically around the stomach, the abdomen. So what can we do? We can kind of blend in other types of exercises, specifically strength training, which is, sorry guys, that's an alarm that I might need to go to. We've got 10 minutes. And yeah, so we were saying you can introduce in more strength training, which is weights, which is lifting weights, and mobility training, things like yoga and Pilates, which are great for you. Right. Mistake number 5 is sleep. And I know we're supposed to be focusing here on nutrition, and I've just spoken about exercise and sleep because I just think that they're just so important as well. Just as, when we're looking at weight loss and fat loss, sleep is extremely, extremely important for weight loss and fat loss. Okay. When you sleep, your body produces hormones that are called leptin and ghrelin, and these hormones control your satiety, how you are satiated from your food, and your cravings. There's so many studies that show us that when we do not sleep enough, our body goes into what's called insulin resistant. Even for one night of not sleeping enough, your body goes into insulin resistance because it is a huge stress on your body and it keeps your cortisol levels high, which contributes to this belly fat, right? This fat storage. So sleep needs to be a top priority, and that's a whole, I think, session in its own. So I'm bringing it all in because I want this to be really, really short, this presentation, and I want to focus on your questions. But I would say the top things that people need to focus on when they're looking for weight loss, which I actually speak about fat loss, energy, cognitive function. The first thing, prioritize your protein. Most adults don't need to eat a lot of carbohydrates. We need to be eating more proteins, okay? Our plate needs to look like protein and vegetables and much, much less rice, pasta, bread. Half of your plate should be devoted to vegetables. Forget about calories, count the colors of your vegetables. You should be eating the rainbow. As much, the more variety, the better. Think about your blood sugar levels. If you have ever done a blood test and seen that your blood sugar levels are above 82, that's already a signal that your blood sugar levels are a little bit high. If your hemoglobin A1C or HA1C is above 5.2, you're already kind of, inching towards insulin resistance. And these are probably the two most biggest factors that will increase your metabolic health or bring you towards unhealthy metabolic systems. So what can you do? Never ever eat your carbs alone. Doesn't matter if it's rice or bread or fruits, always combine them with proteins, fats, and vegetables. So, for example, if you're going to have a fruit, have it with a handful of nuts. Walk. Walking is the best medicine for everything, for your brain, for your health, for your body, for your mood. Walk, but especially after meals, because this brings down blood sugar. Focus on building muscle mass. Cardiovascular activity is amazing, but you should be building muscle mass. Everybody should be doing weight training for their body type. Not everybody needs to lift 100 kilos, but everybody should be lifting some sort of weight. And if you're eating breakfast, or it doesn't matter whenever you're eating your first meal of the day, even if you're fasting, for example, your first meal of the day needs to be protein rich. That's a very, very important thing. I'm a very visual person, so I love pictures. This is how I envision most people's plates to look like for lunch and dinner. You don't have to have animal protein. If you're a vegetarian, swap that animal protein for vegetarian sources of protein like tofu or lentils or legumes. But note that you need to eat a lot more lentils and legumes to get to quality protein. And also, they also contain carbs. So you definitely do not need to be eating any rice if you're eating any lentils for a meal. Um, I am a bit of a sucker for science, and I wanted to share with you this link here for an amazing study that came out of journals. And this was a study that was done, and it looked at three types of diets: the high protein diet, the ketogenic diet, and the low carb diet. Okay. And they looked at, oh, sorry, the high protein diet, the ketogenic diet, and intermittent fasting. These were the three diets that were looked at. And they looked at these diets and they said, what was the best diet for weight loss, for body fat loss, and for reducing cholesterol levels? And the diet that won the best or the most amount of marks for all of these was the high protein diet. When you're eating enough protein, when your body's getting enough protein, it's protecting your bones. It's protecting you from osteoporosis. It's protecting your metabolic tissue. It's giving you longevity. It supports your mood. It balances your blood sugar, which reduces your cravings. So when we are speaking about optimizing your metabolic health, fat loss, brain health, all of these, it's about making sure you're getting in enough protein. And again, I'm a super visual person. I love to see like per 100 grams, how much protein am I getting? And you can see that, for example, chicken or fish, you're getting 25 grams per 100 gram, whereas when you're eating, for example, chickpeas, you're only getting 7 grams, lentils, 6 grams. So you see where I say you need to eat a lot more protein in order to get the amount that your body actually needs. To prevent fat gain, once you've gotten to the place that you want to get it in your body, you need to make sure that your inflammation is lower and that you're walking a lot and that you're lifting weights. These are probably the most important things to keep you at a good level. Okay, that's that. I'm going to open up for questions because I know Emma has prepared a lot of cool questions for me.
Thank you, Karin. And just to check with you, how is it going with the alarm, and do you have to
Well,
go
if
or
there will be an alarm, I will get another alert, and
okay,
then you'll have a break from me for 10 minutes while I go to the bomb shelter, and you guys you'll have to
improvise?
improvise. If
Guys,
not, I'm here,
just
and
to put it in context, Karin is in Israel right now, and
yeah,
that's the reference to bomb shelters and sounds of missiles and stuff. So we're hearing from an exciting person who is in an exciting
yeah,
place. No, and I don't
Good,
mean that
yeah.
in a humorous way at all. It is kind of really sad, but thanks for being here, even in spite of all of this, Karin.
no worries, no worries, guys.
Okay, go for it,
Okay,
Emma.
so yeah, so I've as I said earlier, collected a number of your questions. Actually, if you also have questions that you would like that you didn't put in the survey, feel free to put them in the chat. I will curate them and bring them live. So first questions, there were a number of questions actually around mental health and how to keep my mind as healthy as possible, especially in my 60s, 70s. Any tips from you, Karine?
From the studies, if you want to keep your brain healthy and you want to keep your brain young, probably the most important things to do is look at your blood sugar. If your blood sugar is stable and your insulin levels are not spiking, so when you eat anything sweet, it doesn't matter if it's a fruit or a chocolate or a cookie or a piece of bread, you're going to have a high blood sugar spike and then a drop. Okay. And that's why we said about this combination of eating together with fruit, with eating your fruits together with a protein, a fat, and some fiber from vegetables, for example. When your blood sugar is stable, that is probably the best thing for your brain. And when you and the way that you can do that, if you're not sure that your blood sugar is stable and you're curious about it, probably one of the ways that I like to do it, and I think you did that as well, Emma, is wearing something called a continuous blood glucose monitor. It's called a CGM. And it can be very helpful for people that are on the beginning of their path of learning how their blood sugar is reacting to what they're eating. And the more you practice, the better you get at it. What did you think? You wore the blood sugar monitor. Did you enjoy it? Was it a good learning lesson for you?
Yeah, definitely to understand like when there was spikes, and yeah, it really helped me adjust my diet and my also my fitness routine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a great tool. I enjoyed it a lot. I would say the second thing, there's a few things that are very important for the brain, and you can look at this as well. There's been a lot of studies that have been done on this, especially the blue zones and all that. The second thing, so sugar is definitely the first thing. The second thing is building muscle mass. Getting enough mass and strength is extremely important. It's not just the way you look. It's about the hormones that your body produces when you're building these muscles. It's about what the muscles are doing when you're resting. They're burning energy while you rest, while you sleep. They're protecting your bones. This is extremely important. When you have muscle mass, your body's completely different hormonally to someone that has no muscle mass. And that's why just being skinny, in Asia, we call it being skinny fat. Just being skinny is not healthy. It's about having this muscle mass.
Mm.
Sleep. Sleep is incredibly important for your brain. Your brain shrinks when you sleep just a little bit. And there's a special fluid that actually kind of sweeps over the brain and clears the brain. And we know that chronic sleep deprivation is the worst thing for our memory and our focus. I work with a lot of children that struggle with concentration issues and ADHD and ADD. By the way, adults have a lot of these problems as well. And very often it's actually connected to sleep. A lot of these children are actually misdiagnosed. They have sleep issues, specifically being mouth breathers. A lot of people are not aware, but if you're a mouth breather, if you've got sleep apnea and you're not aware even that you're not sleeping well, you're not getting that deep restorative sleep, that is going to affect your brain, your everything.
Mm.
Nutrient density. That's another thing that we speak about with aging. So I can eat 1,000 calories from McDonald's, and I can eat 1,000 calories from a meal that has, a whole lot of vegetables and fruits and nuts and lentils and
Yeah.
maybe fish or whatnot. There's a very big difference in nutrients and calories. Most of us are overfed. We're eating more calories than we need, but we're undernourished. We're not reaching that nutrient dense diet that we need to be eating. That's because a lot of us are focusing on processed food and not enough real, raw, homemade cooked food. Other things that we can kind of get into, if we have time, it's, walking, stress, your social, and your cognitive stimulants. These are very important for your brain as well.
Great. So maybe just to quickly recap, because I see a lot of other questions coming in. To keep your brain healthy, it's really about reducing sugar, building muscle mass, sleeping more, eating more whole food rather than processed food. Great, thank you. There's a questions that from two people in the audience. You talk about snacking, and are coffee and tea considered snacking?
That's a great question. Coffee and tea, and I'm speaking about black tea, not about, herbal teas. Black tea and even green tea, they contain caffeine. Okay, coffee and tea contain caffeine, which feels great, especially when you're tired. But what it does is it makes your stress levels go high, so it releases cortisol in your system. And what cortisol does is it releases blood sugar into the blood, and it releases insulin into the blood as a response. So even if you didn't eat sugar or you didn't eat chocolate or you didn't eat a cookie, your blood sugar might be acting as if you did when you had that coffee or that tea. So when can you have the tea? Have it at the end of a meal. Have the coffee at the end of the meal. Don't have these things on empty stomachs because they really boost your cortisol levels. And coffee or tea first thing in the morning is probably the most popular thing that people do, right? It's like the first question that I ask people is like, what do you do first thing in the morning? And they're like, coffee, of course. So just understanding that starting off with coffee first thing in the morning, it's probably not the greatest thing for your body.
Thank you. We have a question about earlier in your presentation, you mentioned that the lack of sleep leads to insulin resistance and potentially developing fat around your belly. If you could
Yeah.
expand a little bit more the link.
Yeah. So it comes down to hormones, right? So insulin is a hormone and it sits at the top of a pyramid of other hormones, which govern your energy, your fat storage, your sex hormones, everything. And when insulin is imbalanced, it's this ripple effect that goes down into the rest of the body. When you have insulin resistance or when you have chronic stress and your cortisol is constantly elevated, your body goes into panic mode. What does it mean? It's like the body's like, I don't know what's happening here, but this is a huge amount of stress for me. I am going to shut down my metabolism because that's not essential for now. I'm just going to live in like fight or flight mode and I'm going to use only what's essential. So I'm going to shun all my energy to the heart and the lungs and the big muscles, and I'm going to turn off fat storage. I'm going to turn off metabolism. I'm going to turn off my immune system. And so when you are chronically stressed and not sleeping is a chronic stress issue, right? When you're chronically stressed and you're not sleeping well, you are going to develop belly fat. You're going to develop this very, very hard to lose belly fat. And this is something that I see all the time. People that tell me, I'm exercising every day. I'm not eating a lot of food. I'm eating the right food. I'm taking all my supplements and I can't lose weight. Why is that? And that mostly comes down to the fact that they've got chronically high cortisol levels from various issues, right? We also all lead like extremely stressful lifestyles. And undersleeping is another type of stress that we usually put on our body.
Thank you. Another question was around, so in your presentation, it was, you talked overall about, about us, whether we are women or men, but are there actually differences that one should be aware in terms of diet or lifestyle based on, what are the key difference between men and women, especially as we age?
That's an amazing question. And you know what? It doesn't come down to men and women. It comes down to the person itself. We're all different humans with different, physiology. And we might be
Mm,
this might be two women and they might be totally different with totally different needs. And that's why it needs to be personalized. And this is why I practice personalized medicine. And I think now with AI, it's going to be even more exciting because we're going to be able to take person's blood work, a person's genetics, a person's goals, lifestyle. We can sync in, wearable technology, and we can really come up with very personalized protocols for these people. So I don't think that any two people, whether it's a female or a male, need to be on the same protocol. Each and every single one of us should be taking different supplements. There's things that we could be doing the same, like everybody needs to be doing exercise daily, everybody needs to be eating a nutrient-dense diet, but maybe you need to be eating a vegetarian diet and I need to be eating a carnivore diet. And that comes back to our genetics or the way that my body breaks down certain things and your body breaks down certain things. And today, with the technology we have and the testing that we have, we can learn that. And that's amazing.
thank you. Great. And a question that was asked, I think, in the survey leading to the webinar was around one is around is do you recommend to get tested on around food intolerance, food allergies? Should we do those tests, especially as we get older?
That's a good question. Sometimes I'm like, if you're feeling great, don't test anything. Just go about life. Like if you're doing good, don't look for problems. If you're not doing great and you want to optimize, that's when you need to look into things. Food intolerances is not a very in-depth test. It's not a very in-depth test about your health. You're better off doing a comprehensive blood test to look
Mm,
into inflammation, to look into your blood sugar, to look into your blood fats, like your blood lipids, like your cholesterol, but not the regular cholesterol, but look, deeper. You're better off looking into your nutritional deficiencies, like your iron and your B12 and your vitamin D, stuff like that. You're better off looking into your hormones, because we can optimize those much better. Um, and food sensitivities is it's important when we're dealing with gut issues, but there are other things that we can kind of look into when we're dealing with gut issues, like your microbiome and things like that. So it's not my first test to do. I usually start off with other things. Like I usually look into comprehensive blood tests and stool tests, and before I jump into these types of tests.
mm. So more regular blood testing to see if we have any deficiencies
And
rather than
in-depth blood
looking
testing.
in-depth blood testing. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
going deeper, and also reading the blood tests differently from what conventional doctor reads it. When the conventional doctor reads your blood test, they're looking at what's normal. I'm looking at what's optimal. When we're looking at longevity, we're looking at optimization versus being normal.
Great. Actually, a linked questions to that is asked by one of our participants was around vitamin and supplements. And I suppose, and knowing you, Karin, that, based on your blood test result, then you recommend certain supplement or vitamins or
Yeah,
minerals. But are
yeah.
they like generic supplements that you would recommend, especially for someone in their 60s or 70s who really want to keep well and live well?
You're right. I recommend that people do blood tests, and according to the blood tests, I like to give the supplements. Um, I like people to eat real food. I feel there's a lot more bang for your buck in real food.
Mm,
But I do accept that not everybody has the ability to eat, a perfect diet. So sometimes supplements come into, I would say, the top three supplements. And again, I am a huge supplement snob. So I always say the quality of the company, the quality of the supplements that you buy needs to be of the highest quality. If you're buying the cheapest supplements, then you're better off not taking them. I think an omega-3 fatty acid is important. I think a lot of us don't get enough omega-3 in our diet, and it's very important for our brain and our heart health. I think a magnesium blend, so there's about 7 different types of magnesiums, but getting a blend of magnesiums can be very good for everyone's heart, bones, energy. And either a probiotic or eating fermented foods, things like sauerkraut or kefir or any type of fermented food like kimchi, is a good idea because you need to get some probiotics in there. If you're not eating these foods for whatever reason, you should be taking a probiotic. Those are my three that I think also can't do much harm.
All right. So omega fatty acid, magnesium blend, and probiotic.
Yeah,
And prioritize real food, whole food,
100%.
non-processed. Yes.
100%.
Okay, wonderful. So we have about 15 minutes left, and I know I'd like to hand it over to Navin to close. So I'm just wondering if there is any burning questions from the crowd, um, or anything that really comes to mind that you say, "Oh, I really would love to ask Karin this questions." Feel free to put in the chat or come off mute and ask it live. It's always nice to have some interactions.
There was a question that I got from the list. There was two questions. One was about gray hair and about skin. Do you want me to touch on that?
Yeah, sure. Yes. It was, yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
So
please.
skin came up, and I guess skin is always linked to, how we all feel. How do we support our skin the most? And I guess probably the most important thing is hydration. So a lot of us are walking around dehydrated. I speak about this a lot. If you are concerned about, you want to know if you're hydrated or not, you just need to look at the color of your pee. If your pee is even slightly yellow, you're dehydrated. So the pee that you're peeing needs to be the color of water and it needs to have no smell. So hydration is very, very important. And that will plump up your skin and will be great for your digestion and your blood and everything as well. Protein, I know we've spoken about it in the context of everything else, but when you eat protein and especially collagen, your body can actually utilize this to repair skin. Omega-3 fatty acids, so this is where it's important for skin as well. Omega-3 kind of reduces inflammation, but you can get omega-3 from food as well. So things like sardines and walnuts, these are good for you as well. Antioxidants, so those color pigments in your food, so like the blue in the blueberry or the red in the beetroot or the green in the kale, those are called antioxidants. They fight oxidation, which is what happens to your skin, and they protect your skin. And not under eating. So this is something that a lot of women do, not so much men, but a lot of women do this, especially as they grow older, they undereat. Um, and this ages you a lot. So you actually need to nourish yourself to have good skin. Things that
Mm.
are really bad for your skin is sugar. Sugar is a disaster for one's skin, and what we call bad oils or seed oils. So not all oils are created equally. And there are oils that are man-made oils that are called seed oils, like canola oil and sunflower oil and rice bran oil and soybean oil. And these oils are really pro-inflammatory and they show up as inflammation in your skin as well. So I really tell people to be also an oil snob as well as a supplement snob, be an oil snob and really like take care of the oils that you're using. In terms of gray hair, this is interesting because I have a friend who's actually building a startup on this. And there's a lot of talk now about peptides. I don't know if you guys are reading and kind of being, introduced to this, but a lot of the health world is speaking about something called peptides. And we're already using peptides, like Ozempic, for example, this IGF-1, which is a type of peptide. It comes out of proteins. And they found that when you take this specific peptide, this IGF-1, it reduces you just don't feel hungry and then you lose weight. It does come with side effects as well, so it's not recommended for everyone. But there are a lot of different peptides on the market, and some of them have amazing qualities. And there's a lot of research now in the world of peptides, and there's research on the world of peptides for graying hair as well, which can be quite cool. Imagine one day we'll all take this peptide and no one will have to color their hair. But what happens with graying hair is that it's basically like your skin. It's oxidative stress. It's literally just us growing older. Some things might accelerate this, like smoking, having a poor diet, or having like severe stress. Okay. So severe stress,
Mm.
there's, how the saying says, like, I'm getting gray hair from, this person or this this experience.
Stress,
So
yes.
that for sure will affect you. If your thyroid is unbalanced, you're going to have a tendency to have gray hair. And if you've got nutritional deficiencies, so if in your blood tests you've got low levels of B12, low levels of copper, low levels of iron, and low levels of folate, you are going to be more susceptible to having gray hair.
Thank you. There's a few questions that came in into the chat. One, there's a few around apple cider. First of all, can we
Mhm.
have them in gummies instead of the, liquid, or is there an alternate to apple ciders for those who might not like the taste or who might be allergic?
Yeah. The school of thought behind the apple cider, I mean, I love marketing. Marketing is amazing. They can take anything and make it like sell it and make it look amazing. Whoever invented those apple cider gummies, I'm not sure if it was the Kardashians or who, but they did a great marketing job. Um, and the thought process behind apple cider vinegar is eating something acidic in order to increase your stomach acid. So what happens is the stomach is the second stop in your digestive system. The first stop is your mouth. And then you chew your food, it goes down your esophagus and it lands in your stomach. And your stomach is highly acidic. It should be acidic because that's where your body starts digesting the food that you're eating. And if your stomach isn't acidic, you're not going to digest your food properly, and it's going to put a whole, long list of issues down the line of your digestion. Um, a lot of us don't have enough digestive juices, and our stomach is not acidic enough, and therefore we can boost our digestion by adding something acidic to our food. So apple cider vinegar is a good option, but you could add lemon, and if you look in a lot of dishes, especially stuff that's prepared traditionally, usually you squeeze a lemon or lime onto the dish right at the end, right? Or you might add a slice of lemon or lime into your water, or you might eat something a little bit sour just before you
Mm.
you eat, right? So there's a thought behind it that it's supposed to increase your digestiveness. um, the apple cider vinegar gummies, if they're homemade and they're made with good quality stuff, probably I don't have a problem. The stuff that you're buying at the supermarket or health food shops is probably just a sugar trap.
Yeah, great. There was a quick question. I don't know. It's a little bit of a different topic around mouth taping, probably to promote the nose through the nose breathing.
Yeah.
Any view on that, Karin?
Yeah, so I look at sleep very, very deeply. I think if you, just like we said about like nailing your blood sugar levels, and if you're not sure and you want to learn about that, or if you're susceptible and you've got that in your genes, you should wear a continuous blood glucose monitor and you should really look deep into it. Same with sleep. If you're doing all the right things and you're not seeing results, or you're feeling tired, you've got a lot of fatigue, you need to look into your sleep because sleep is going to teach you what you're doing wrong. And what happens is as we age, a lot of things happen, but the muscles that hold our whole torso up and like make sure that the lungs don't collapse and that hold our facial muscles and our neck muscles, they age and they're not as strong and they sometimes collapse when we sleep. And that creates this like dropping into the lungs. And very often, what happens is people have sleep apnea or they mouth breathe and they snore. And that means that you might be waking up multiple times throughout the night and you're not getting to this deep restorative sleep. And so, probably the first thing that you can do is you can get an Apple Watch or an Aura ring and you can start, looking at your sleep trends and seeing if you're actually sleeping properly. You can ask your spouse if you're snoring or if you're mouth breathing. And if you are, then there's things that you can do. So some people mouth tape. It doesn't help everyone, but mouth taping just literally forces your mouth to stay together. What you actually need to do is you need to train yourself to sleep on the side and to support your body so that you don't collapse with pillows. And you need to train yourself to sleep with your mouth closed. And there's all kinds of things about it. But it's important to dive deep into this and not, disregard it because sleep is essential. I would say sleep is even more important than nutrition for someone's health. So it should be something you should protect really, really, really strongly. And if you're not feeling great, this should be an area that you should be looking into.
Great. Thank you, Karin. There were a few questions in the chat, but what we'll do is that we'll collect them, we'll get the answers, and then send them, for everybody's benefits, just to make sure we answer all of them. Maybe just a quick recap about, before we close this. I think there was so many insight that Karin gave us so generously. So I was scribbling some notes and maybe just to share a quick summary. So around the five mistakes that we frequently do. So let's not count the calories, count the colors, especially for vegetables. Let's cut the snacks. Protein is key, especially as you start the day. And I wrote sleep, sleep, sleep. As you just mentioned, sleep should be the priority over everything else. And yeah, one that I really like and I actually do as much as possible myself is really walk after every meal, even if it's just 10 minutes around the block. And it has improved my digestion and my sleep, especially when I go at night. The last few is never eat carbs alone. Build muscle, not just cardio. Add apple cider vinegar or lemon, as you said, to your food. And yeah, there were so many, but I guess those are the ones that I picked up. Thank you, Karin, for your generosity and all your insights. And I must say, knowing you for all these years, I know how much you do research and you keep, your information up to date and you share it generously with your community. So thank you for bringing also science behind all this nutrition tips, so that it's really the accurate information and data for us to stay healthy. And with that, thank you very much. And Naveen, over to you, maybe to close.
Sure.
Unless, Karin, do you have maybe a few comments?
No, firstly, thank you. Thank you for hosting me, guys. I always say if you take one thing from this session, that's a win. So just think about one thing that resonated and take it home and add it into your life. I'll share with you. I think Naveen, you can maybe share my social media. That's where most people can follow me. I like to do all kinds of fun things on social media and share recipes and that resonate with me. And yeah, just thank you for having me. Thanks a lot for having me.
Hey, one question, Karen, that came up. I think it just scrolled up. Cortisol levels. How do you measure cortisol levels? I think a couple
That's
of
a good
people.
question. Probably the most efficient way to measure cortisol levels is in the blood and in the urine. So I would say the more effective way is in the urine, and we measure it over 24 hours. So you get to pee in a cup and stick in a strip three or four times during a 24-hour cycle, and that tells us about your cortisol levels. There's a natural cortisol spike that everybody should experience during the day, and there should be a dip towards the evening. It kind of looks like a little mountain that kind of goes down like that. And that's a natural cortisol spike. When we are looking into someone who has like chronic stress or they're just unhealthy, not able to lose weight, a lot of metabolic issues, hormonal issues, then we often see that the cortisol is either very, very flat or it's flat and then it spikes at the wrong time. So, when people say that they're tired but wired, that's usually because their cortisol is just completely, not balanced.
Okay. I would say, the two things I picked up. First, you said don't ever look at your weighing scale. That doesn't give you all the information. That's so true. When I was at the hospital the other day, somehow they measured me a little bit shorter and they measured an extra kilogram of weight and they called me obese. And if you see me, I'm definitely not obese. I'm about as fit as you can get for a 61-year-old or 62-year-old. And I realized that the BMI scales are just the wrong way to measure somebody's, muscle mass
Right.
and everything else. So just looking at that weighing scale, which is what most people do, I think that was great advice.
Correct.
But on the other five mistakes, I've made all five mistakes, so I'm 5 out of 5 for mistakes, and I'll try to fix that. But I want to ask everybody on the chat, give me a +1 or a thumbs up if you're willing to make one change after listening to this session. Okay. So while I'll close it out, please make the effort because it's easy to listen to these things and say, wow, great presentation, Karin, very good. Thanks for sharing. And you walk away doing nothing, then it's useless. So the first step is to say, I will. The second is to go on some social platform to say, I will. And then we'll capture all of that and then come back to you and say, hey, did you do something? Because we would love for you to make a change. I mean, these sessions are for you to understand from the experts. And I'm so happy that Karin came on board to speak to us. We have, let me close out with two other things. We have two other partners of ours who have spoken to you in the past. One is Jatendra Zaveri. He focuses on a lot on meditation and how to avoid medication, right? How to live a life without medication and use, somebody had said this once, if you eat your food like medicine, then you wouldn't have to eat medicine like your food, which is a great way to kind of combine those two concepts of eat well and not have to consume a lot of medication. Jotindra runs several sessions, so if you'd like to attend one of his sessions, please do so. Another partner of ours is Elena Okorochenko. She also gave up her corporate life and decided to go into wellness. She has a slightly different take on wellness. Wellness is such a broad field, and she runs a practice out of Singapore. So here's details on her wellness classes as well. So if you want to engage with Karin, that's fantastic. Two of our partners are here as well. And we do hope that you have put out on chat a thumbs up saying that you will answer or you will make a change. And I've asked Julie to capture all of the questions. So we'll kind of scan through quickly and see if any of the questions did not get answered. We will get back to Karin and get an answer for you guys. Okay. We are about 3 minutes or 2 minutes over time, so we did very good on time. Thank you very much to all of you for attending. For some of you in the US, I know it was quite an odd time, but we appreciate you coming on from wherever you are in the world. And Karin, I'm so happy that you didn't have to leave because of a live siren or a warning or
A
alarm.
live rocket.
Yes. So you didn't have to run
I
into
was
your bomb
saved.
shelter. Thank
I
you,
was saved.
everybody.
Thank
See you
you.
now. Bye-bye.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Thank you.